I'm currently focused on the practical applications of aperture, depth of field, rack focus, and bokeh. I'm exploring how these concepts can be creatively combined, especially how these aspects will impact a user's experience. I'm considering potential scenarios and how to translate these effects into tangible results. I'm now delving into the tone and structure of this new piece. I'm aiming for a humorous and gentle narrative, similar to the established style, but this time it will emphasize emotional well-being and soft jokes. I'm also planning to maintain the familiar chapter format from previous explorations. I'm imagining the character navigating concepts related to aperture and light, using these elements to reflect their emotional state and social situations. I'm leaning toward a very visual and humorous approach. I'm now considering how depth of field translates to mental states, specifically anxiety versus focused enjoyment. I'm visualizing the concept of rack focus, contrasting stressful paperwork with a much needed snack. I'm aiming for humorous dramatic shifts, like the dun moment of realizing a cookie is superior to stress. I'm now integrating bokeh into my visual metaphors, specifically the act of turning chaos into beauty. I'm exploring how a stressful scene, like traffic, can transform into an artistic display through this lens effect. I'm also considering how the metaphor relates to the feeling of a sigh of relief. I'm envisioning a sleeping dog in the background, a visual representation of peace. I'm now crafting the final chapters. Chapter 16 focuses on rack focus with the shift from a deadline to a bird, capturing the mental click of changing gears. In Chapter 17, I'm leaning heavily on bokeh, visualizing string lights as fuzzy orbs of joy to evoke cozy ASMR. I'm also using words like squinting and marshmallow to enhance the gentle tone and incorporating self-deprecating humor. It was one of those aggressively bright Tuesdays where the sun felt personal. I took my camera to the park, opened the aperture wide to f1.4, and pow, the image was a blown-out, whitewashed disaster. It looked like the visual equivalent of someone shouting, "Surprise!" while you're holding a hot coffee. "Too much light," I whispered, dialing the f-stop down to a sensible f11. The iris of the lens tightened, squinting politely. Suddenly, the sky was blue again, the grass green, and my histogram stopped screaming. It struck me that my own aperture needs adjustment sometimes. When life gets too loud or too Monday, I don't have to stay wide open, absorbing every photon of stress. I can stop down. I can be an f22, tiny pupil, sharp focus, letting in just enough light to see, but not enough to get sunburned on the inside. I put on my sunglasses. My eyes thanked me. My camera thanked me. The sun continued its rampage, but we were safely stopped down. I stared at my kitchen table. It was a landscape of chaos. 3 unread mailers, a screwdriver, a half-eaten apple, and a vase of flowers. First, I shot it with deep focus. Everything was sharp. I could see the wilting petals and the terrifying past due font on the bill simultaneously. My brain began to itch. It was too much reality per square inch, so I twisted the focus ring. The depth of field shallowed out. The background melted into a buttery blur. The screwdriver became a vague grey blob. The bill became a harmless white rectangle. The only thing sharp, the single defiant red petal of a tulip. "There," I told the room. "That's all I can handle today. Shallow depth of field is the ultimate act of self-care." It says, "I acknowledge the mess in the background, but right now, I am only emotionally available for this one nice flower." I set up a shot of my laptop screen, glowing with the menacing light of an unfinished email draft. The cursor blinked, mocking me. It was a tragedy in the making. But then, just behind the laptop, sitting on the windowsill, a very fat bumblebee landed. I grabbed the focus ring. Whoosh! The laptop screen dissolved into fuzz. The focus traveled physically through the air, sliding past the keyboard, over the coffee mug, and landing crisply on the bumblebee's fuzzy yellow butt. It was a cinematic change of heart. I'm now clarifying the core task. My focus is on dissecting the user's request. It's becoming clearer that we're talking about concepts in cinematography rather than concrete visual elements. The ambiguity surrounding episodes needs a resolution, as this could have broad interpretations within the framework of cinematography. I've been brainstorming categories to structure the 100 concepts, and it's coming together. Composition and framing are clearly essential, and I've also identified camera shots and angles as key areas. Defining these main pillars is helping me flesh out the list and ensuring a broad perspective on cinematography. I'm now refining the categories and their definitions. Expanding them with sub-concepts is necessary to build a humorous yet comprehensive list. I'm carefully selecting the most engaging concepts within each category to ensure a memorable and enjoyable read. Also, I'm considering the potential impact of each concept to guide the structure. I'm now expanding on the categories and creating humorous one-liners for each concept. I'm carefully evaluating and adding new concepts to ensure a balanced and comprehensive list. My main goal is a list that sparks interest and delivers genuine value to the user. I'm expanding my framework to accommodate the variety of cinematography concepts, aiming for a list that is both comprehensive and entertaining. I'm focusing on creating categories with precise definitions so that all of them can be appropriately addressed. My goal is a diverse and useful list with clever wordplay. I'm now expanding the framework to incorporate concepts across all facets of cinematography. Humor is being injected into each concept to create an engaging experience for the user. I'm focusing on well-being and relatability. I'm also ensuring a balanced mix of technical and conceptual elements. I'm now focusing on rephrasing technical terms with relatable humor. I'm exploring different analogies and metaphors. I've been experimenting with several concepts, aiming to create sentences that connect with the user on an emotional level. I'm working on the framework's specifics, establishing robust categories for each concept. I'm focusing on defining clear boundaries to avoid overlaps and maintain a humorous tone. The goal is to provide useful insights that can actually be put to use. The user wants to create a soft novel featuring 4 styles, written in the first person with a blend of humor and emotional well-being. I'm thinking of structuring it into 4 vignettes that weave together a narrative around filmmaking techniques, like the rule of thirds and symmetry, while including gentle jokes and insights into emotional well-being. Each chapter could illustrate one concept with a light-hearted approach, using whimsical elements such as photographing a cat named Harold for emotional resonance. Let's get started. I woke up this morning to discover that my living room wall, where I hang my prized velvet portrait of a surfing corgi, had somehow scooted itself dead center between the 2 windows. The perfect symmetry made me itch the way a too tight turtleneck does during allergy season, so I shuffled the couch, the rug, and yes, the corgi-free neat grid lines to the right. Instantly the world exhaled. There is something soothing about putting your focal point slightly off-center, as though telling your eyeballs, hey, no one has to be the main character all the time. While I admired my handiwork, my anxious brain whispered, what if guests think you just eyeballed it? But that's the magic. Nobody notices good composition. They only feel strangely, wonderfully at ease, the way you feel when a friend slides the last fry towards you without making a fuss. I toasted my triumph with lukewarm chamomile and promised myself I'd extend the same gentle generosity to my own imperfections. After all, if the corgi can surf off to the right, I can surf through Monday.
I felt like the inside of a vacuum cleaner bag, dusty, grey, and full of accumulated lint. My spirit was in dire need of a spring cleaning, so I put on my oversized noise-cancelling headphones and turned the volume up to Revival. The gospel choir hit the first chord, and it was like a sonic leaf blower for my psyche. The joy was aggressive. It didn't ask permission to enter. It kicked the door down with a tambourine. We are going to be happy, the soprano section insisted, and we are going to do it in 3-part harmony. I felt the vibration scrubbing away my cynicism. I found myself clapping on the 2 and 4 right there in the middle of the grocery store aisle. To the outside observer, I was just a person staring at frozen peas while nodding aggressively. But inside the headphones, I was undergoing a spiritual car wash. By the time the song modulated up a key, the dusty corners of my soul were spotless. I walked out of the store feeling lighter, cleaner, and ready to testify about the miracle of noise cancellation. My attention span is a wanderer. It likes to go on long walks and forget to come home. That is why I appreciate the rondo. It's the musical equivalent of a boomerang. The main theme, let's call it the happy tune, played, and I felt grounded. Then the music wandered off into a new, dramatic section. I started to get anxious. Where are we going? I worried. Is this a tangent? But then, whoosh! The happy tune came back. It was delightful. It was exactly like my cat Mittens. Mittens leaves the room to nap, section B, comes back to scream for treats, section A. He leaves to stare at a bug, section C, comes back to scream for treats, section A. The rondo reassured me that no matter how far off track I get, whether I'm distracted by a side quest or a sudden urge to reorganize my books, I will eventually circle back to the main point. And the main point is usually happy, familiar, and hungry for snacks. I had a knot of tension in my shoulders that no amount of lavender oil could touch. I needed the heavy stuff. I needed metal. I put on a track that sounded like a dragon falling down a flight of stairs. The guitars were growling, the drums were a machine gun of anxiety, and the singer was definitely not using his inside voice. It was anger yoga. Instead of doing a downward dog, I did a headbang of mild frustration. I let the music do the screaming for me. It yelled at the traffic. It yelled at the price of avocados. It yelled at the printer that never works. It was a safe, contained void where I could dump all my negativity. After 4 minutes of pure, distorted chaos, the song ended abruptly. Silence filled the room. I felt surprisingly zen. I mentally high-fived the void. "Good session," I told the silence. My shoulders dropped 3 inches. Namaste, shredders. It was 11:45 p.m. The house was quiet, which meant my brain decided it was the perfect time to host a seminar titled "Everything You Have Ever Done Wrong Plus Taxes." I needed an escape route. I needed a lullaby. I felt a little silly at first, a grown adult tucking myself in like a burrito, but I started to hum a simple rocking melody. It was an auditory force field. The electricity bill tried to enter my thoughts, but the melody gently pushed it away. "Not now," the lullaby said. "We are floating on a cloud." The melody was simple enough that it didn't require focus, but repetitive enough to hypnotize the part of my brain that was worrying about inflation. I realized that Dreamland has a very strict no haunting policy. As my humming slowed down and my breathing deepened, I felt the heavy cape of adulthood slip off my shoulders. The bills would still be there in the morning, but for the next 8 hours, I was untouchable. I've been meticulously considering the nuances of handheld shots, dolly zooms, whip pans, and 3-point lighting. Delving into the interplay of these concepts, I'm forming a conceptual framework. Each technique's potential for expressing specific emotions and conveying unique perspectives has become clearer as I assess my existing understanding. I'm now fully immersed in developing my narrative framework. I'm focusing on weaving humor and emotional depth into the explanation of cinematography concepts. The goal is to make the learning process engaging through a self-deprecating yet kind tone. I've begun deconstructing concepts like handheld shots, creating metaphors like coffee jitters to represent its inherent intimacy and realism. This has led to the first narrative draft about a messy, relatable morning routine. I'm now zeroing in on individual story beats to solidify the narrative. My focus is crafting moments around the out-of-tea crisis, emphasizing its cozy nature. I'm exploring whip pans to represent a sudden distraction, maybe a pizza delivery, and how 3-point lighting makes a mundane moment feel heroic, like finding the last tea bag. The narrative is growing more organically from these smaller elements. I'm now personifying the lighting elements as characters, like the key light being a cheerleader. I'm planning a video call setup to experiment with these lighting dynamics firsthand. I want to look less like a cave troll. I've started chapter 43, and I'm starting with a tripod, removing it, and filming my kitchen. The shaky camera represents my heartbeat, an honest, intimate connection with the viewer. The key is to convey presence. I'm using the office chair as my dolly for chapter 44. The visual trigger for the dolly zoom will be a calendar notification that generates a comedic sense of panic. Chapter 45 explores the whip pan with a contrast between a documentary about my plant and the abrupt intrusion of an ice cream truck sound, representing an unexpected shift. I'm aiming to use whoosh as a sound effect. I'm personifying the 3-point lighting setup in chapter 46, casting each light as a distinct character. The key light brings boldness, the fill light lends gentleness, and the backlight adds a halo effect. Bringing these elements together makes me feel like a movie star. More accurately, just well rested. And yes, it all supports the bigger story. I looked at my tripod. It stood in the corner, rigid, unyielding, demanding perfection. "Not today, Teapot," I whispered. "Today, we embrace the wobble." I hoisted the camera onto my shoulder. Immediately, the frame began to bob and weave, syncing perfectly with my heartbeat and the residual vibration of my morning coffee. I filmed my kitchen in all its glory. The unwashed spoon, the flour on the counter, the cat judging me from the fridge. Handheld style feels like a visual confession. It says, "I am human, I have a pulse. Sometimes I tremble a little." The footage wasn't pristine, but it felt alive. It felt real. It reminded me that a steady hand is overrated. Sometimes a shaky hand captures the truth of the moment far better than a locked-down robot ever could. I sat in my rolling office chair, camera in hand, staring at my calendar. Suddenly, I saw it. Dentist appointment, 15 minutes ago. My body rolled forward on the chair wheels. My fingers instinctively twisted the zoom lens backward, the dolly zoom. On screen, my face remained the same size, but the background of my office seemed to stretch and warp into an infinite tunnel of despair. The bookshelf elongated. The window receded into another dimension. It was the visual manifestation of my stomach dropping into my shoes. I watched the playback. It was a masterpiece of panic. It turns out that specific feeling of, oh no, my soul has temporarily disconnected from the server is actually a very cool camera trick. I missed the appointment, but I got the shot. Prior rights.
I am a creature of habit, but even I get tired of the living room eventually. That's what the bridge is for. I was deep into a song, nodding along to the verse and singing the chorus into my hairbrush, when suddenly, the road curved. The melody changed key, the rhythm softened, and we were no longer in Kansas. We were in the bridge. It felt like pulling off the highway at a scenic overlook just to eat a sandwich and stare at a tree. Take a breath, the bridge suggested. We've been singing the same hook for 2 minutes. Let's look at things from a different angle. It was a relief. It reminded me that I don't have to stay on the same track all day. I can take a mental detour, look out the window, think about llamas, wonder if I left the iron on, and then merge back into the final chorus with renewed energy. The view from the bridge is always worth the toll. I hate abrupt endings. Hanging up the phone without saying bye feels like a crime. And movies that cut to black while the character is mid-sentence give me hives. That is why I cherish the coda. The song had finished its main business. The story was told. But instead of slamming the door, the music lingered. It repeated a sweet little phrase, fading out slowly, like a host walking you to your car. Here, the coda whispered, handing me a final chord. Take this feeling with you. It was an emotional souvenir. It gave me time to put my coat on and transition back to the real world, where the refrigerator hums and the bills need paying. The coda is a reminder that closure doesn't have to be a hard stop. You can drift out of a moment, waving goodbye, letting the good vibes trail behind you like a scarf. Starting things is hard. Walking into a party, starting a new book, or just getting out of bed, it all requires a lot of activation energy. The introduction understands this. I put on a track and it didn't yell the lyrics at me immediately. It offered a few bars of gentle drums and a swirling synth pad. It was a sonic handshake. Hello, the intro said. We're going to be in the key of E flat today. Today. No rush, just get comfortable. It allowed me to acclimate to the temperature of the song before jumping into the pool. It calmed my social anxiety of sound. By the time the vocals actually started, I was already nodding my head and feeling prepared. I realized I should treat my mornings like an introduction. Less jumping out of bed in a panic, more slowly fading in the daylight while adjusting my settings. I was listening to a fugue, which is basically a musical logic puzzle designed to make you feel both smart and slightly dizzy. The main theme, the subject, kept popping up everywhere, high, low, middle, demanding my attention like a toddler with a new toy. My brain was starting to smoke. And then the episode arrived. The strict rules vanished for a moment. The theme took a break and the music just wandered. It was lighter, freer, less demanding. It was the musical equivalent of the teacher leaving the room for 5 minutes. Relax, the episode seemed to say. Refill your coffee. Stare at the wall. It was a structural act of kindness. It taught me that even in the most rigorous, complex days, you are allowed and expected to have moments where you just noodle around and accomplish absolutely nothing of substance. I have never successfully finished a Sudoku puzzle. I usually get frustrated and draw a smiley face in the empty box, but listening to a fugue gave me that same aha feeling without the need for an eraser. It started with one lonely voice, then a second voice copied it, then a third. It sounded like a chaotic dinner party where everyone is talking about the weather at different speeds, but then I relaxed my ears. I stopped trying to force it and just tracked the pattern. Suddenly the chaos aligned. I could hear how the voices locked together, creating a tapestry that was stronger than any single thread. It was deeply satisfying, like watching a Tetris block slide perfectly into place. The fugue reminded me that life often feels like a mess of overlapping noises, but if you step back and listen for the pattern, you might find that everything actually fits together, and if it doesn't, well, you can always just draw a smiley face on it.
I have a complicated relationship with gravity. Physical staircases usually involve me wheezing on the second landing and pretending I'm just admiring the architecture while my heart rate calms down. But a musical scale? That is the only cardio I actually enjoy. I sat at the piano, pressing the white keys one by one, climbing from C to shining C. It was a perfect, predictable ascent. Unlike the stairs in my apartment building, which are uneven and smell faintly of old carpet, the scale is a masterpiece of engineering. Every step is exactly where it's supposed to be. Do, re, mi. It's a ladder of logic. Running up and down the keys made me feel athletic, nimble, and graceful. 3 adjectives that have never been used to describe me in gym class. It was a practice in reliable outcomes. I knew that if I stepped on the 7th note, the 8th one was just a half step away, waiting to pull me up to the top floor. No sweating required, just the satisfying sensation of arriving exactly where you intended to go. I woke up feeling like a muted beige sweater, but the radio was insisting on a neon yellow tank top. That's the power of modes. I realized that my emotional landscape is basically a closet full of scales trying on different outfits. When I played a major scale, it was aggressive optimism. It was wearing SPF 50 and holding a frisbee, demanding I go outside and frolic. I wasn't ready to frolic. So, I flattened the 3rd note and slipped into a minor mode. Much better. The minor mode was a cozy, oversized raincoat. It didn't mean I was depressed, it just meant I wanted to sit with a cup of tea and look wistfully out a window at nothing in particular. Then I tried the Mixolydian mode, which felt like wearing sunglasses indoors, cool, slightly mysterious, and a little confused. It's comforting to know that for every specific weird mood I'm in, music has a specific weird outfit to match. I decided to stay in minor for the morning. The raincoat matched my socks. Being a single note is hard work. You're out there on your own, sustaining a frequency, trying not to wobble. That's why I love a good chord. I played a C, then added an E and a G, and I could practically hear the notes sighing in relief. "Thank goodness you're here," the C seemed to say. I was getting lonely holding down the fort. It was a harmonic support group. The bottom note provided the stable foundation, the one who brings the snacks. The middle note decided whether we were happy or sad, the one who processes feelings, and the top note added the sparkle, the one with the good gossip. Together, they created a sound that was richer and stronger than any of them could manage alone. It was a sonic reminder that I don't have to carry the melody of my life by myself. Sometimes you just need to stack a few friends around you, resonate together, and make a joyful noise, or at least a loud, supportive hum. I have a terrible sense of direction. I once got lost in a parking lot I had been to 100 times. But a chord progression is a map you can feel. I listened as the song started at home, the tonic, wandered off to the subdominant, a nice trip to the park, and then got a little tense at the dominant, the moment you think you lost your wallet. But the beauty of the progression is that it always resolves. The chords were taking a scenic walk, and even when things got a little dissonant, like tripping over a tree root, I knew they were just looking for the way back. The tension built up, making my shoulders tight until finally the progression landed back on the home chord. Plonk. Resolution. It was the musical equivalent of walking through your front door, taking off your shoes and realizing you didn't lose your wallet after all. It was in your other pocket. I breathed out. The journey was over, we were safe at home, and the metaphorical kettle was already boiling.